There are moments in life that split your world into two versions: the life before and the life after. For me, that moment happened on a cold November afternoon in Seattle, when I stood beside a polished oak casket and watched strangers lower the man I loved into the ground. Or at least, I thought they did. My name is Emily Harper. I'm 32 years old, and I own a small neighborhood bookstore called Turning Pages, tucked between a coffee shop and an old record store in Seattle's Fremont district. People always tell me I have the perfect job. They imagine quiet afternoons surrounded by books, warm coffee, and peaceful conversations. Most days, they're right. Books are honest. People aren't always. 6 months before the funeral, my life had been beautifully ordinary. I woke up every morning before sunrise, unlocked the bookstore, watered the little plants near the front window, and placed handwritten staff recommendations beside my favorite novels. Regular customers knew me by name. Mr. Howard came every Tuesday looking for mystery novels. Mrs. Ellis always bought romance books but pretended they were gifts. College students spent hours studying in the reading corner without buying anything. And I never minded. The bookstore felt like home. I had built that life one careful step at a time after losing both of my parents in my 20s. Then I met Ethan Brooks. He walked into the bookstore looking completely out of place. Tall, dark brown hair, a navy jacket covered in rain. He stood in front of the history section for almost 15 minutes without picking up a single book. Finally, I walked over. "Can I help you find something?" He smiled awkwardly. "I hope so. What are you looking for?" He scratched the back of his neck. "Honestly, I forgot." I laughed. "You forgot? I came in because it was raining." "So you're not here for books?" "Oh, I like books. You just don't know which one." "Exactly." I couldn't stop smiling. There was something refreshingly honest about him. Most people tried to sound interesting. He seemed perfectly comfortable admitting he had no idea what he was doing. "I'm Emily." "Ethan, what do you usually enjoy reading?" He thought for a moment. "Stories where ordinary people do extraordinary things." I pulled a novel from the shelf. "Try this one." He looked at the cover. "You've read it?" "3 times. "Then I'll trust your judgment." That became our routine. Every Saturday afternoon, Ethan visited the bookstore. Sometimes he bought books. Sometimes he returned the ones I'd recommended. Sometimes he stayed for hours, drinking coffee and talking with me about life. He worked as a structural engineer. He loved hiking. He couldn't cook anything except scrambled eggs. He called his younger sister every Sunday without fail. He remembered small details. When I casually mentioned loving cinnamon rolls from a bakery across town, he surprised me with one the following weekend. When I admitted I hated thunderstorms because they reminded me of childhood, nights without electricity, he started texting me every time heavy rain was forecast. "Still alive?" He'd write. "I'll survive." Good. Simple. Thoughtful. Steady. I had spent years convincing myself I didn't need anyone. Then Ethan quietly proved that needing someone wasn't weakness. Sometimes it was simply love. A year later, he proposed. Not in a crowded restaurant. Not during a vacation. He did it inside my bookstore after closing. He placed a tiny ring box inside the pages of my favorite novel. When I opened the book, the ring fell gently into my hand. I looked up. He was already on one knee. "I can't promise perfect days," he said. "But I promise you'll never face the difficult ones alone." I cried before he even finished asking. "Yes." Of course I said yes. It felt like saying yes to the future itself. We planned a spring wedding. Nothing extravagant. Just family. Close friends. A small vineyard outside Seattle. My best friend Rachel helped me choose the dress. Ethan's older brother, Mark, volunteered to organize the rehearsal dinner. Everything felt wonderfully normal. Until the phone call. It happened on a Wednesday evening. I was locking the bookstore when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello? Is this Emily Harper?" "Yes. This is Officer Daniel Morris with the Seattle Police Department." My stomach tightened immediately. "There has been an accident." Time stopped. The officer spoke calmly. There had been a multi-car collision on Interstate 5. A truck had crossed into oncoming traffic. 3 vehicles were involved. Ethan's SUV caught fire before emergency crews arrived. Dental records were needed for identification. I remember hearing every word. I remember understanding none of them. The keys slipped from my hand. The bookstore door remained unlocked. People walked past me on the sidewalk. Cars drove by. The world continued moving. Mine didn't. The funeral happened 5 days later. Closed casket. Too much damage, they explained. Everyone told me Ethan had been a wonderful man. His co-workers, his neighbors, his family. His brother Mark cried harder than anyone. He hugged me tightly and whispered, "He loved you more than anything." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? After the service, Mark handed me a small cardboard box. "Ethan kept these at my house," he said. "I think he'd want you to have them." Inside were photographs, concert tickets, our first movie stub, the receipt from the bookstore the day we met, and a handwritten note. "No matter what happens, you'll always be my favorite chapter." I slept holding that note against my chest. The weeks afterward blurred together. Grief isn't dramatic most of the time. It's quiet. It's forgetting why you walked into a room. It's setting 2 coffee mugs on the counter before remembering you're alone. It's reaching for your phone every time something funny happens, then remembering. Again. People kept telling me time heals everything. They meant well. But time doesn't heal. Time simply teaches you how to carry pain without dropping it in front of strangers. I went back to work after 6 weeks. Customers smiled kindly. Neighbors brought casseroles. Rachel checked on me almost every day. Slowly, life found a new rhythm. Not a happy one, just survivable. Then something strange began happening. Every Friday morning, a single white lily appeared outside my bookstore. No card, no note. Just one perfect flower leaning against the front door. The first time I assumed someone made a mistake. The second week, I asked nearby businesses if they'd seen anyone. Nobody had. By the 5th Friday, I became uneasy. White lilies had been Ethan's favorite flower. He once told me they reminded him that beautiful things could exist without asking for attention. Exactly the kind of thing he would say. Rachel tried to comfort me. "Maybe someone knows how much you miss him." Maybe. But something felt wrong. One Friday, I arrived before sunrise, hoping to catch whoever left the flower. I parked across the street, coffee in one hand, eyes fixed on the bookstore. At 6:18 a.m., a dark gray SUV stopped half a block away. Someone stepped out wearing a baseball cap and dark jacket. I couldn't clearly see the face. The person walked toward my bookstore, gently placed another white lily beside the door, and before getting back into the SUV, they looked directly toward my parked car. Even from that distance, something about the way they stood, the slight tilt of their head, the way they pushed one hand into their jacket pocket, my heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. It looked exactly like Ethan. Not similar. Not familiar? Exactly. I threw my coffee onto the passenger seat and jumped out of my car. "Wait!" The person froze for one brief second, then climbed into the SUV. The tires screeched. The vehicle disappeared around the corner before I could reach the street. I stood there shaking. Every logical part of my mind screamed that grief was playing tricks on me. But another part, the part that had loved him, the part that knew every movement, every habit, every little gesture, whispered only one impossible sentence. That was him. And for the first time since the funeral, I wasn't wondering how to move on. I was wondering whether the man I buried had ever been inside that coffin at all. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man outside my bookstore. The way he stood, the way he glanced toward my car, the way he hurried back into the SUV after I shouted. People say grief can make you imagine impossible things. Maybe they're right. But grief doesn't copy someone's walk perfectly. It doesn't recreate the tiny limp Ethan had after spraining his ankle on a hiking trip 2 years earlier. I had watched him relearn that walk. I knew it better than I knew my own. The next morning, I told myself to be rational. I opened the bookstore as usual, shelved new arrivals, helped customers, smiled when people spoke to me. But inside, my thoughts were racing. Around noon, Rachel stopped by carrying 2 coffees. She studied my face for only a second. You look terrible. I saw Ethan yesterday. She didn't laugh. She didn't tell me I was imagining things. Instead, she quietly sat across from me. Tell me everything. When I finished, she remained silent. Finally, she asked, How certain are you? I swallowed. If 100 means I saw him clearly, I'd say 99. Rachel sighed. Emily, I know how it sounds. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I don't think you're crazy. Relief washed over me. But, she continued carefully, I think you need proof before you let your heart believe something impossible. She was right. I needed proof. That afternoon, I walked into the Seattle Police Department. The receptionist directed me to Officer Daniel Morris, the same officer who had called me 6 months earlier. He recognized me immediately. Ms. Harper, I have a question about Ethan Brooks. His expression softened. I'm sorry for your loss. I think I saw him yesterday. The room became very quiet. He leaned back in his chair. Can you explain? I told him everything. He listened patiently. When I finished, he folded his hands. The accident was thoroughly investigated. I know. The vehicle was destroyed by fire. I know. The remains were identified through dental records. I know. So what are you asking? I looked directly into his eyes. Could there have been a mistake? He hesitated. A mistake is always theoretically possible. My heart skipped. But in this case, he opened a file on his computer. There were multiple confirmations. Dental records. Yes. DNA? He nodded. Personal belongings. The driver's license. The watch he always wore. Everything. Everything pointed to Ethan's death. Officer Morris closed the file. I understand why grief makes people search for hope. This isn't hope. It's memory. He walked me to the door kindly. Before I left, he said something that stayed with me. If you truly believe you saw someone connected to this case, don't chase them alone. I nodded. But deep inside, I already knew I would. The following Friday, I arrived even earlier. 5:30 a.m. The street was almost empty. Rain dripped softly from the rooftops. At exactly 6:16, the same gray SUV appeared. My heart pounded. This time I stayed hidden behind another parked car. The driver stepped out. Baseball cap, dark jacket, white lily in one hand. He placed the flower gently against my bookstore door. Then he whispered something. I couldn't hear the words. Before he turned back, I stepped into the sidewalk. Ethan. He froze. Completely. Every muscle in his body tightened. Slowly. Very slowly. He turned his head. For one unbelievable second, our eyes met. Blue eyes. The same scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. The same face. Just older. Thinner. He looked terrified. Not confused. Terrified. Ethan, I whispered. His lips parted as if he wanted to say something. Instead, he ran. He sprinted toward the SUV. Stop! I chased him. Cars honked. Rain soaked my coat. He climbed inside. The SUV sped away. But this time, I memorized the license plate. I repeated it over and over until I reached my phone. I typed it into my notes before I could forget. Rachel met me 20 minutes later. You actually saw his face? Yes. She stared at me. What now? I find that car. That afternoon, we visited a private investigator Rachel's cousin recommended. His name was Jack Sullivan. Former detective. Gray hair. Sharp eyes. He listened quietly while taking notes. When I finished, he asked only one question. Do you have the plate number? I slid the paper across the desk. He looked at it. I can't promise anything. I don't need promises. I need answers. He nodded once. Give me 48 hours. Those 2 days felt longer than the previous 6 months. Every phone vibration made my heart race. Finally, Sunday afternoon, Jack called. I found the SUV. I nearly dropped my phone. Where? It belongs to a company. What company? He paused. Harper Security Consultants. I frowned. I've never heard of them. Most people haven't. What do they do? They specialize in witness protection logistics. I stopped breathing. Witness. Protection? Yes. Are you saying, Ethan? I didn't say anything. What else did you find? The company has government contracts. My hands began shaking. This doesn't make sense. It gets stranger. How? The registered address is a warehouse. No employees listed. No public phone number. No website. Almost invisible. Jack's voice became serious. Emily. Yes? I've investigated missing people for 23 years. And? I've never seen paperwork disappear this cleanly. That night, I spread every photograph of Ethan across my living room floor. Birthdays, camping trips, Christmas mornings, our engagement. Every smile suddenly looked different. How much of the man I loved had been real? Around midnight, something caught my eye. One photo from our engagement party. Everyone was smiling at the camera. Everyone except Ethan. He was looking behind the photographer. At someone else. His expression wasn't happy. It was frightened. I turned the photo over. Written on the back, in Ethan's handwriting, were 4 words I had never noticed before. If anything happens, trust Mark. His brother. The same brother who organized the funeral. The same brother who cried beside the coffin. The same brother who gave me Ethan's memory box. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered immediately. Hello? Silence. Then, a man's voice, barely above a whisper. Emily. My knees almost gave out. I knew that voice. I'd heard it say, I love you 1,000 times. Ethan? His breathing grew heavier. You have to stop looking for me. Tears filled my eyes. Where are you? I'm sorry. Are you alive? Long silence. Then came the words that changed everything. If they discover we've spoken, neither of us will survive. The line went dead. I stared at my phone long after the call ended. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. It wasn't just the voice. It was the way he said my name. No one else in the world said Emily quite like Ethan. Soft. Careful, like he was afraid the name itself could break. Rachel rushed to my apartment as soon as I called her. What happened? He called. Her face turned white. What? He called me. She grabbed my phone. Did you record it? I closed my eyes. No. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she asked, What exactly did he say? I repeated every word. When I finished, Rachel looked more frightened than excited. Emily, what? If he's really alive? He is. Then someone wanted the world to believe he was dead. That sentence settled over the room like heavy fog. Someone, not an accident. A plan. I barely slept that night. At sunrise, I drove straight to Mark's house. Ethan's older brother lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Seattle. The same house where we'd celebrated Thanksgiving. The same porch where Ethan had taught his little niece how to ride a scooter. Nothing looked different, yet everything felt different. I knocked. Mark opened the door wearing sweatpants and a faded mariner's t-shirt. His smile disappeared the moment he saw my face. Emily, we need to talk. He stepped aside without saying a word. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and cedar wood. For a moment, memories flooded back. Family dinners, birthday cakes, football games. I had once believed this place was part of my future. Mark handed me a mug of coffee. You look upset. I didn't touch it. I saw Ethan. His hand froze halfway to his own cup. Only for a second, but I noticed. I know that sounds impossible. He forced a weak smile. Emily, he called me last night. The coffee mug slipped from his fingers. It shattered across the kitchen floor. Silence. Neither of us moved. Finally, I whispered, You knew. Mark stared at the broken pieces. You knew he was alive. His shoulders slowly collapsed. It looked as though he had been carrying something unbearably heavy for months. When he finally looked at me, there were tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry. My heart broke all over again. Not because Ethan was alive, because someone I trusted had looked me in the eyes at a funeral. And lied. When? I asked quietly. When did you know? The day before the funeral. I couldn't breathe. The day before? He nodded. He contacted me. I took a step backward. You let me bury an empty coffin? It wasn't empty. What? There. There were human remains. The room spun. They belonged to another victim whose family couldn't be located. I covered my mouth. This can't be real. I wish it wasn't. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "Why?" Mark rubbed both hands over his face. "Because Ethan begged me." "Begged you?" "He said if anyone found out he was alive, people would die." "The same thing he told me." Mark looked surprised. "He called you?" I nodded. His expression filled with fear. "That's bad." "What does that mean?" "It means he broke the rules." "What rules?" "I don't know everything." "Tell me what you do know." He hesitated, then finally spoke. 3 days before the accident, Ethan came to my house. He looked terrified. He said he'd witnessed something. "What?" He wouldn't tell me. He just kept saying, "If anything happens to me, protect Emily." I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Mark continued. Then the accident happened. The next day, I received a phone call. From Ethan? He said the crash had been staged. He wasn't dead. He was being hidden. He told me I could never tell anyone. Not even you. Especially not you. Why me? I asked him the same question. What did he say? Mark looked away. He said, because she's the reason they'll find me. I felt cold. So I was? The bait. Mark lowered his head. I think so. I couldn't stop crying. Every lonely night, every tear, every flower I left at his grave, every conversation I'd had with a headstone. He had known. He had let me believe. I hate both of you, I whispered. I know. I loved him. I know. You watched me destroy myself. His voice cracked. I hated myself every single day. Suddenly there was a loud knock at the front door. Both of us froze. Mark frowned. Were you expecting someone? No. Another knock. Harder this time. Mark walked toward the window. His face drained of color. Oh no. What? He pulled the curtain back just enough to look outside. There are 2 black SUVs. My stomach tightened. Who are they? I don't know. The doorbell rang again. Longer this time. Mark turned toward me. Go out the back. What? Now. Mark. They can't find you here. Who are they? I don't know. His voice shook. But if Ethan disappeared to protect you, I'm not taking chances. The front door rattled. Someone was trying the handle. Mark grabbed my shoulders. Run! I hurried through the kitchen toward the back door. Before leaving, I looked back. Come with me. He shook his head. If they see both of us running, they'll know. I stepped outside into the cold morning air. Rain had started falling again. I climbed over the backyard fence and ran through the neighboring yards until I reached my car. As I pulled away, I saw 2 men in dark suits entering Mark's house. Neither looked like a police officer. Neither carried a visible badge. One glanced toward the street. For one terrifying second, I thought he saw me. I drove without looking back. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mark. I answered immediately. Mark? No response. Only heavy breathing. Then, a different voice. Cold, calm, professional. Ms. Harper? Who is this? Stop looking for Ethan Brooks. My pulse exploded. Where's Mark? He's alive. For now. What have you done? You've mistaken grief for curiosity. And curiosity gets people buried. The call ended. I slammed on the brakes outside an empty parking lot. Rachel, who had been following me in her own car after I texted her earlier, rushed over. What happened? I couldn't answer. I simply handed her the phone. She looked at me, then quietly said, This isn't about a fake death anymore. No, it never was. As I wiped away my tears, I noticed something tucked beneath my windshield wiper. A plain white envelope. No name, no stamp. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Ethan, alive, standing beside a cabin deep in the mountains. The photo had been taken only days earlier. On the back, someone had written 6 words in black ink. Don't trust the man called Mark. I stared at the photograph until the words blurred. Don't trust the man called Mark. Rachel took the picture from my trembling hands. This has to be a setup. I don't know what to believe anymore. Neither did I. Just 20 minutes earlier, Mark had admitted helping Ethan fake his death. Now, someone was warning me that Mark himself couldn't be trusted. Every truth seemed to come with another lie attached to it. Rachel looked at the cabin in the photo. There has to be a clue. I took the picture back. At first, all I saw were tall pine trees and a small wooden cabin. Then I noticed something in the background. A faded green road sign. Only part of the name was visible. A lake. It wasn't much, but it was something. That afternoon, private investigator Jack Sullivan called. I have news. Please tell me it's good. I don't know if it's good. What did you find? I dug into Ethan Brooks' financial records. And? He stopped using his bank account 6 months ago. That makes sense if everyone thinks he's dead. Yes, but someone has been paying his mortgage. I frowned. Who? Cashier's checks. No name. Every month. So someone has been taking care of his house. Exactly. Can we go there? Jack hesitated. We can, but I have a feeling someone will already be waiting. By sunset, we stood outside Ethan's house. The little blue house we'd planned to renovate after our wedding. The porch swing we'd picked together. The flower boxes I'd painted. Everything looked untouched, almost as if he had never left. Jack carefully unlocked the front door. Stay behind me. The house was silent. Dust floated through the evening light. The living room looked exactly as I'd remembered. Our engagement photo still sat on the fireplace. My heart ached. I walked slowly into the kitchen. 2 coffee mugs, one still sitting beside the sink. The calendar remained open to the month Ethan died. Time had frozen. Then, I heard footsteps upstairs. Jack immediately drew his flashlight. Who's there? Silence. We climbed the stairs carefully. The master bedroom door stood half open. Inside, no one. But the window was wide open. Whoever had been there had just escaped. Jack searched the room. Then he called my name. Emily. I walked over. On Ethan's bedside table lay a folded piece of paper. It hadn't been there before. Someone had left it only minutes earlier. I unfolded it. 3 words. He never told you. Nothing else. My stomach tightened. Told me what? Jack searched the room more carefully. Inside the closet, behind several old jackets, he found a small metal safe. Do you know the combination? I smiled sadly. Ethan used the same number for everything. Our anniversary. I entered the code. The safe clicked open. Inside were documents, a passport, several $1,000s in cash, and a small velvet box. Not another engagement ring. A flash drive. Jack held it carefully. This may explain everything. We hurried back to Jack's office. He inserted the flash drive into his computer. Only one video file appeared. No title. No date. Jack clicked play. The screen flickered. Then, Ethan appeared. He looked exhausted. His beard had grown longer. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. He stared directly into the camera. If you're watching this, something has gone terribly wrong. Tears instantly filled my eyes. It was really him. Alive. Breathing. Talking. Ethan? His recorded voice continued. Emily? If you're seeing this, it means I failed. I'm sorry. So incredibly sorry. He wiped his face. I never wanted you to carry this pain. But I had no choice. Jack and I exchanged worried looks. Ethan leaned closer to the camera. 6 months ago, I witnessed the murder of a United States senator. My heart stopped. He continued. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a robbery. It was an execution. I couldn't breathe. I was inspecting a construction project late that evening. I saw everything. They saw me, Jack whispered. My God. Ethan continued. The FBI placed me into a classified witness protection program. They said the only way to keep everyone safe was to convince the killers I was dead. My tears returned. So that's why. I agreed. But there was one condition. They promised no one would ever contact Emily. They promised she could grieve. Then move on. His voice broke. I knew it would destroy her, but I believed it would save her life. I covered my mouth. Everything suddenly made terrible sense. The funeral, the closed coffin, the fake accident, the mysterious security company, the white lilies. Then Ethan said something unexpected. But someone inside the program betrayed us. Jack looked sharply at the screen. They've been leaking my location. I've had to move 4 different times. I don't know who I can trust anymore. He paused. If anything happens, do not trust. The video suddenly froze. The screen went black. Jack frowned. No. He checked the file. The ending had been deleted. Someone had erased the final 30 seconds. The most important part. The room fell silent. Finally, I whispered, he was trying to tell me who betrayed him. Jack nodded. And someone made sure he couldn't. Before either of us could speak again, every light in the office suddenly went out. Darkness. Complete darkness. Then, the emergency lights flickered on. Outside, car tires screeched. Jack rushed to the window. His face turned pale. What is it? They're here. Who? The same black SUVs. Before I could answer, the office door exploded inward. And the first man through the smoke calmly said, Miss Harper, your fiancé has made a very expensive mistake. The office door crashed against the wall. Splinters flew across the room. 3 men in dark tactical clothing stepped inside. None of them wore police uniforms. None of them showed badges. The man in front was tall, with silver hair and icy blue eyes. He looked more like a businessman than someone breaking into an office. He smiled. Miss Harper. Jack quietly moved in front of me. You don't have a warrant. The man ignored him. My name is Victor Kane. I don't care who you are. You should. His smile disappeared. I'm the last person standing between you and a very dangerous organization. Jack frowned. Then why break down my door? Because you don't have much time. Before anyone could answer, a deafening gunshot echoed from outside. Glass shattered. Everyone instinctively ducked. Victor turned toward the window. They found us. They? Jack asked. Victor looked at him. The people who actually want Ethan dead. More gunshots exploded outside. A black SUV burst through the parking lot entrance. Another followed behind it. Men wearing black masks jumped out. They weren't aiming warning shots. They were shooting to kill. Victor shouted, Move! He grabbed my arm. Jack hesitated only a second before following. We rushed through the back hallway as bullets ripped through the front office. The building's fire alarm suddenly began screaming. Smoke filled the hallway. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint. Victor led us through a rear emergency exit into a narrow alley. A black sedan waited with its engine running. Get in! We climbed inside. The driver accelerated before the doors were fully closed. Behind us, the sound of automatic gunfire echoed through the city streets. I looked back. Jack's office disappeared behind smoke. Within seconds, an explosion shook the building. My stomach turned. Everything I thought was happening had just become much bigger. 20 minutes later, we arrived at an abandoned marina outside Seattle. Victor finally spoke. You deserve the truth. I crossed my arms. I've heard that before. This time you'll hear all of it. He opened a briefcase and placed several photographs on the table. The first showed Ethan entering a federal building. The second showed him shaking hands with FBI agents. The third made my blood run cold. It showed Ethan sitting across from Mark. My voice trembled. They met? Victor nodded. Many times. I looked up sharply. I thought Mark was helping him. He was. Then why was I warned not to trust him? Victor sighed. Because someone wanted you to doubt the only person still protecting Ethan. Rachel's words came back to me. Every truth comes with another lie attached to it. Victor continued. The note on your windshield was fake. So Mark didn't betray Ethan? No. He risked everything to protect his brother. I closed my eyes. I'd accused him. I'd told him I hated him. Tears filled my eyes again. Victor placed one final photograph in front of me. It showed Ethan, standing beside a little boy, about 8 years old. The child was laughing. Ethan had one arm around his shoulders. I stared in confusion. Who is this? Victor became unusually quiet. His son. The room disappeared. What? His name is Noah. I couldn't breathe. Ethan, you has a son? Victor nodded slowly. 9 years old. I shook my head. No, that's impossible. He never had children. He does. My voice cracked. With who? Victor looked away. Not with another woman. My heart pounded. Then whose child is he? Victor answered softly. Yours. Silence. Complete silence. I laughed. A broken, confused laugh. That's ridiculous. I've never been pregnant. Victor slid one final document across the table. Hospital records. My name, 8 years earlier. My vision blurred. I whispered, What? Then the memory came rushing back. 8 years ago. A terrible car accident. I'd spent 3 weeks in a coma. Doctors told me I'd suffered memory loss from the head injury. Large portions of those months had never returned. Victor spoke gently. Emily? You and Ethan met years before the bookstore. I stared at him. You were married. The world stopped. No. You married at 23? No. You had a son? No. The accident damaged your memory. You forgot everything. I backed away from the table. This isn't real. Ethan found you again 2 years later. He couldn't bear losing you. So, he let you fall in love with him all over again. Tears streamed down my face. Why wouldn't he tell me? Victor's own eyes softened. Because doctors warned him, forcing. Lost memories could permanently damage your mind. I collapsed into a chair. Every part of my life suddenly felt borrowed. Every memory, every beginning, every goodbye. Nothing was what I'd believed. Just then, Victor's phone rang. He answered. His face lost all color. What? Silence. Then he slowly lowered the phone. I stood. What happened? He looked directly at me. His voice barely above a whisper. They found Ethan. Hope exploded inside me. Is he okay? Victor closed his eyes. They're moving him. Where? He swallowed hard. To a place where no witness has ever come back alive. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. They're moving him? Victor nodded grimly. If they get him across the Canadian border, he'll disappear forever. Then let's go. He looked surprised. You understand what you're saying? I've already buried him once. I'm not doing it again. Within minutes, 3 SUVs sped north through the rain. Victor's team had traced a signal from Ethan's emergency tracking device. No one spoke. The only sound inside the vehicle was the steady rhythm of rain against the windows. I held Ethan's old engagement ring tightly in my hand. I had carried it every day since the funeral. Today, for the first time, it felt less like a memory and more like a promise. After nearly 2 hours, we reached an abandoned lumber mill hidden deep in the forest. Broken windows, rusted machinery, silence. Victor whispered. They're inside. His team surrounded the building. Jack, who had survived the attack on his office with only a shoulder injury, gave me a worried look. Stay behind us. I nodded, but my heart already knew I wouldn't. The front doors burst open. Agents rushed inside. Voices echoed through the building. Federal agents! Drop your weapons! Gunfire exploded. The sound echoed through the empty mill. I ducked behind a stack of old wooden crates. Then, I heard a voice. Emily! My heart stopped. I knew that voice instantly. Ethan! I ran toward it before anyone could stop me. Victor shouted behind me. Emily, no! But it was too late. I turned a corner. And there he was. His hands were tied behind a metal chair. Bruised, exhausted, but alive. Really alive. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Tears filled both our eyes. I thought I'd never see you again, he whispered. I fell to my knees in front of him. I buried you. I know. I hated you. I know. I never stopped loving you. His voice broke. I never stopped loving you either. Before I could untie him, footsteps echoed behind us. A man stepped from the shadows holding a pistol. Gray suit. Cold smile. It wasn't Victor. It wasn't Mark. It was Officer Daniel Morris, the same police officer who had comforted me after Ethan's death. The same man who had handled the accident investigation. The same man I had trusted from the beginning. He smiled calmly. "You should have stayed at the bookstore, Emily." I stared at him. "It was you." He nodded. "I arranged the fake accident. I changed the reports. I leaked Ethan's hiding places." Ethan looked at me. "I tried to tell you in the video." Daniel laughed. "You almost did." He pointed the gun toward Ethan. "This has gone on long enough." Just then, Victor's voice thundered across the warehouse. "Federal Bureau of Investigation. Drop the weapon!" Daniel fired. The shot echoed through the building. Ethan shoved me sideways with all the strength he had left. The bullet struck his shoulder. I screamed. Agents rushed in from every direction. Daniel tried to run. He didn't make it 3 steps before Victor tackled him to the ground. Handcuffs clicked shut. It was over. Finally, it was over. 3 weeks later, Ethan recovered in a secure federal hospital. The bullet had missed every major artery. Doctors said he would make a full recovery. For the first time in months, he slept without looking over his shoulder. Mark visited every day. The first time I saw him, I hugged him before he could speak. "I'm sorry." He smiled through tears. "So am I. We both lost him." He nodded. But we found him again. One quiet afternoon, Ethan and I sat together in the hospital garden. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, I asked, "Did you really leave the white lilies?" He smiled. "Every Friday." "Why?" "Because I couldn't call. I couldn't visit. But I needed you to know someone still loved you." Tears rolled down my cheeks. I almost stopped believing. "I know. I'm sorry." I took his hand. "No more secrets." He squeezed my fingers gently. "No more." 6 months later, the witness protection case officially ended. The criminal organization responsible for the senator's murder had been dismantled. Daniel Morris was sentenced to life in prison for conspiracy, corruption, kidnapping, and multiple murders. The truth had finally won. A year later, Turning Pages was busier than ever. Children laughed in the reading corner. Coffee filled the air with warmth. Life had returned. Not the old life. A better one. One Saturday morning, Ethan walked through the front door carrying a stack of books. He smiled. "I need help." I laughed. "Finding a book? No. Building more bookshelves?" I rolled my eyes. "Some things never change." He leaned across the counter. "One thing has." "What?" "This time, I'm never leaving." I kissed him before the customers could pretend not to notice. Everyone clapped anyway. That evening, after closing the bookstore, we walked to the waterfront. The sun slowly disappeared behind the Seattle skyline. Ethan slipped his hand into mine. "I used to think love meant protecting someone from pain," he said quietly. I was wrong. I looked at him. "What does it mean now?" He smiled. "It means telling the truth, even when the truth is frightening." I rested my head on his shoulder. For months, I believed my story had ended at a funeral. I believed grief would be the final chapter. But life surprised me. Love isn't measured by perfect moments. It's measured by what survives the impossible. Sometimes the people we trust will break our hearts. Sometimes fear will steal years from our lives. But healing begins the moment truth replaces silence. The man I buried was never truly gone. The woman who stood crying beside that grave, she was. Because by the end of our journey, I wasn't the same Emily who had whispered goodbye to a closed coffin. I had become someone stronger, someone who knew that real love cannot survive on secrets, only on truth. And as Ethan and I watched the sunset together, I finally understood something the books in my little store had been trying to teach me all along. Every ending is simply the beginning of another story.